I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and today's question comes from, well, a number of you. Indeed, I've been asked this question almost as much as I've been asked how I'm able to type with boxing gloves on. That doesn't feel like a reference I should understand. Regardless, the question is rather simple. What is the name of my cat? Now, at first I was somewhat confused by this query, as those of you who have been watching will know, I do not currently own a cat, and due to my living arrangement, I'm not likely to possess one anytime soon. But then my associate pointed out to me that this was most likely a trolling question, meant to stir up some trouble surrounding a cat I previously owned, a family cat with a rather, well, infamous name. This cat would be subsequently immortalized by me in the pages of Rats in the Walls, and its name, well, its name possesses within it an ethnic slur which I shall not repeat here. And so I suppose I should address certain questions that have arisen surrounding this cat. First off, know that I'm not interested in making any apologies or excuses for this cat or for immortalizing it or anything. There's nothing I can change about who I am or who I was. Reanimation brings with it many changes, but one thing it cannot do is alter the past. But there are a few things that do come up in the wake of this cat, and indeed in much of my writing, both fictional and in my personal correspondence. People have looked at the name of this cat, some of the things I've written, some of the things that I've shared with private friends, and have suggested that it is enough to label me some form of reprobate. I have been cancelled in certain corners. But I think what's at issue here is this question of how we respond to, well, artists that trouble us. There's a line of thinking, indeed many people come to my aid, suggesting that one must separate art from artist, and I don't know if I wholly agree. Taste is, of course, subjective, it's informed by a great many things, but I do not fall in line with the postmodern notion that the author is dead. In my case, at least, the author is undead. And what we know about a writer or an artist informs our subjective impressions of their work, and we should be willing and able to take in a great deal of information and use it to synthesize our response to the world. We are indeed complex creatures. We should not try to narrow that scope of vision. But that being said, I don't think that I need to be cancelled. I think you can appreciate my work, my stories, find elements within them that terrify or delight or create a sense of wonder, while at the same time wrestling with perhaps elements of my personal views or elements of my stories that you find distasteful. That's simply part of wrestling with the unpleasantness of life. Another defense that is often brought up is that I am a man of my time, and this is something I don't care for in the slightest. For one thing, it limits me, and it limits my era. It suggests that somehow we are inextricably linked and can't be seen apart from one another. And while yes, there are certain mores, certain traditions that are defined by particular eras. The Georgians are as distinct from the Elizabethans, who are distinct from the Victorians and the Edwardians, and on and on and on. There are indeed ways in which morality changes, ethics change, but ultimately, we are still complex people, and we live in complex times. I didn't just live in my time. I lived in Robert E. Howard's time. I lived in Langston Hughes's time. We cannot, once again, pigeonhole people. I, for one, refuse to be pigeonholed. I'm as much a man of the future through my interests in the sciences, my interests in where technology was going, as I am a man of the past, my love of the 18th century, my desire to dress up in fancy wigs and whatnot. So I don't buy that argument. Ultimately, you have to decide for yourself. Are you comfortable with my stories, knowing who I am, warts and all, or would you prefer to put me aside? I have no say in the matter. I will say this: if in some future date I do have a cat, I will probably find another name for it. For no other reason, to rename it after my old one would seem a bit discourteous. And regardless of what you think, politeness is always timely. Maybe I'll pick something simpler, something not too controversial. Maybe Donald. As always, I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Thank you.